Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Hitting the Hardwood podcast, your home for all the latest Minnesota Lynx and WNBA news, analysis, and coverage. Thank you for tuning in to another episode. I'm your host, Mitchell Hansen, and we are finally here to you could say the starting point of free agency. We're not really, we already started the free agency period, but we're officially to the official time of WNBA free agency, where players can now begin negotiating contracts and begin signing with teams. Starting February 1st is when players can officially start to put pen to paper and sign contracts. Leading up till then, we'll hear everything, rumor-wise, as far as where players might end up. And it's one of the most, busiest times of the offseason in the WNBA every year, leading up to the WNBA Draft. But it is one of the more entertaining times of the year for fans, for followers of the league, and for people who cover the league like myself. So it is a very busy time, very important time, and that is true once again this year as for the Minnesota Lynx and for teams throughout the WNBA. So it'll be a busy couple weeks. Here leading up to, basically to the middle point of February, even throughout the month of February, leading up to the draft in April. But it will, things will start to pick up here after a few months of kind of, quiet and a quiet period in the WNBA. We are officially here to a busy time, and it's there's no better time than WNBA free agency. So we finally made it to that period right now. With that said, I'm really excited to have this guest, or our guest, on this week to the podcast. Everybody is familiar with her. Everybody's familiar with her work that she's done in the WNBA, the college game, women's basketball in general. She's touched the game on every level, and she's been an important part to me in what I do on a daily basis. She kind of laid the groundwork for myself in being able to do what I do, trying to look up to somebody in this space, in the reporting space, in the just the content and the coverage space, and she is somebody who's very important to the WNBA women's basketball in general, and that is the one and only Rachel Galligan. This week in the podcast with Rachel, we kind of dive into really everything, and I know I normally say that when I introduce a guest, but this week we really did talk about just about everything, from covering the WNBA women's basketball, Rachel and her work, and the recent news that she will be kind of taking a step back a little bit to some extent with WNBA coverage and breaking news this year. We talk about what it's like to cover this league, and how difficult it is at times, time consuming that it may be. And she's really open and honest, and I really appreciate that openness and honesty that she did provide, and kind of opening up about everything and what it's like to really cover women's basketball and do what she does and what everybody else does, or not everybody else, but what a lot of other people do on a daily basis. And after that, we really we shift gears, and we really dive into the Minnesota Lynx this offseason, what the team could look like, what they could do this offseason, what they might look like leading up to the 2024 year, and what the 2024 season might look like for the Lynx and the rest of the league. So once again, I really appreciate Rachel joining this podcast this week, opening up about everything. Really, really good conversation, as it always is with Rachel, and I appreciate her joining. Appreciate everything that she does for myself and everybody else in this space. So without further ado, let's jump right into the podcast with Rachel Galligan. Rachel, how are you doing? Thanks for joining.
Thank you for having me, as always. One of my favorite guys in the space, so I appreciate you for having me on. Thank you so much.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, and I'm not just saying this, you're one of my favorite guests. It's always great to have you on. I think this is the second time now that you joined, but it's always great to have you on and to chat some basketball with you and get your insight on everything. So I appreciate you joining.
Of course, I'm always happy to come on.
Yeah. Let's before we kind of jump into things a little bit, there's been some off-season stuff that you have been working on. We'll jump into everything else here in a little bit, but if you could just kind of outline what have you been up to this off-season? What are some of the things that you're doing, because it's a lot of great stuff that you're doing, a lot of the TV work and stuff that maybe you're expanding upon this year. But if you could just explain to everybody what you've been up to so far this off-season.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of you know that I do run my own business. I'm in my 6th year of Go Global Recruiting, which when I got out of college coaching, I wanted to start that, which is basically an avenue to help college coaches recruit international players. So I've always been very heavy in the international game, even from playing over there to when I was coaching, recruiting heavily in Europe. And so, I kind of got my feet wet with that and had a lot of success in terms of just building relationships and recruiting players. And then eventually I got to a point where a big dream of mine was to start my own thing and try and help players on a broader scale, not just try to recruit them to come play for me, which was great. But there's a lot of great talent globally. It's a conversation I could talk ad nauseum about for sure. But what I do is basically help the universities recruit the top players all over the world, primarily Europe. And so that's been really good. And yeah, I had a really great summer this past summer in terms of being able to go over there and watch European championships and, stuff that's been going on in South America. And so, it's just continued to grow. It's continued to expand. And, this is recruiting never stops. It's any college coach would tell you their needs are constantly evolving. Their recruiting is always changing. And so that keeps me busy year round, especially in the summer times when I'm traveling quite a bit. But now it's been really cool to see a lot of the players and universities that I have helped, the kids that are over here and playing, watching their careers from a collegiate standpoint. So I do travel around and visit some of the universities and watch practice and continue to educate myself as a former coach and as a basketball mind. But just get an opportunity to watch these kids go from being in high school in Europe to having success from on the college stage. So that keeps me busy. And I would say this off season, I say off season, I mean my summer is when I'm actively traveling, but it's been a lot. There's a lot of kids that have a great amount of talent that take up a lot of my time in terms of evaluating and just keeping things updated. So the growth of that has been awesome. It's definitely a dream of mine. It's a priority of mine. It's demanding more and more of my time as time goes on, but it's been good. So I've been focused on that, and then I've also been broadcasting as a color analyst. I've been doing that really for about, I don't know, maybe 8 years now. So when I moved out west to Denver, I felt like that could take a hit. A lot of my ties were from the Midwest, and anybody who works as a color analyst, those opportunities are hard to come by. And I was kind of picked up on a little bit last year from kind of a regional network here in Colorado called Altitude Sports. They do the Nuggets and the Avalanche, but they also kind of cover men's and women's college basketball here in Colorado. So I got signed on with them last year. Things went well, and they are even more this year, more demanding in terms of just the games I've been doing for them on TV. So I've been really, really busy with those two things, and trying to squeeze in watching as much college basketball as I can when I can. It's amazing to me how much my broadcasts really overlap with that. That's the one downfall, but yeah, just staying busy with my business and the broadcasting. Those are two of the greatest passions in my life.
Yeah, it's cool to see for me personally, just knowing how great of a basketball mind you are, seeing that translate into your work, seeing that translate into your passions, specifically the TV work and how knowledgeable you are about the sport to begin with. But to see that kind of shine through is fun to follow along, and it's really cool to see. I don't want to say a different aspect of your knowledge and your skills, but it's kind of it's fun to see that kind of evolve and grow. So it's a really cool thing to see that, and for you also, you get to see kind of the names, or the names of like the overseas talent maybe before a lot of people do, which is kind of cool that you get to see that kind of from its infancy to see them kind of storm onto the stage because you've known them, or you've been around them, or you're familiar with them. So that's kind of cool that you get to see kind of that next wave too, that not a lot of people are familiar with at that time.
Absolutely. I love it. I love I love women's basketball. I've worn so many different hats in this game. But the Go Global and international side is hopefully, fingers crossed, it's something I can do forever. And from the broadcasting side, the one thing I didn't expect, I spend so much time in women's basketball, whether it's WNBA and college game. to the grassroots game. I didn't anticipate, the men's college side kind of breaking wind of me or catching wind of me and wanting me to kind of jump in and be lead analyst for them. That was not something I anticipated, but I'm incredibly grateful for being able to kind of shift gears a little bit and be given some opportunities with men's college basketball. So I'm enjoying it. I'm loving it. Learning a whole new, kind of element of the game of basketball has been great. So yeah, I mean, me. I mean, we talk about this all the time. I never want to stop learning. I never want to stop growing. Never want to stop pushing myself. So yeah, I appreciate you for saying that.
Yeah. Another aspect to your coverage or your basketball knowledge and skills in the past has been a lot of people know you breaking news on the WNBA, your coverage of the WNBA. Recently on social media, you had announced that you'll be kind of taking a step back from that this year. If you're willing to, if you want to just maybe explain a little bit of the reasoning behind that and kind of the decision that went into all of that, because I know you're focused on what you just talked about, your passions and your work that you do on a daily basis.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really let me try to formulate my thoughts. um I got to be really transparent. It's been very bittersweet. It was not easy for me to come to that conclusion. I even to this day, know of things, and it's hard, that temptation to go on there and do that, is very much, I'm kind of struggling with that right now during this time. It's just almost feels like a habit. But for me, it really does just kind of come down to, I wish I could clone myself and I wish I could do it all. I anyone who has watched me do this, and again, this was not something I planned. I didn't go into this 5 years ago strategizing to kind of help spearhead this effort of breaking news in the WNBA. I kind of fell into it. And I fell into it because of my background in the women's game, from playing professionally, from coaching college basketball, just having relationships. That's where it started. And finding myself in a position, with Winsider, where I was able to come on the show and just talk about the game. I don't want to say I fell into media, but it just kind of started to happen. And then when, I think the first big break was the Liz Cambage demanding a trade. That's kind of where it all started, at least for me. And I just kind of fell into this situation. And it really just took on a life of its own. And the momentum, I think, that we built with it, and I say we because it was a team effort. I by no means can take all the credit for what was put out there. I might have been under my name, but I had so many people that were in my corner, and one of them being R.A. Schwartz was just, I couldn't have done anything that I did without him. But it was fun, and I think the expectation that it was coming every single year was fun, and the hype around it, and of the commotion around it, the excitement around it. What people don't realize was how demanding it is. I can talk my family or anybody who's physically been around me this time of year. I'm not very present. There's just a lot of just me buried in my phone. It's a lot of phone conversations. It's a lot of sleepless nights. A lot of times you're struggling to take a shower and, not missing something. And it can be very hectic and very chaotic. And part of that is what makes it addicting a little bit. There is an adrenaline rush with it. And I think the biggest asset that I personally have is I'm just a competitive person. And so you combine that with the element of, I found myself in a position where I could, and it really did start with wanting to kind of be, someone that had the ability to do this and create noise, create excitement, give the fans, things to talk about this time of year, give the players more spotlight on them. We see it in all these other leagues. Why couldn't we have that in the WNBA? And so I felt like, my passion for this game and my love for pushing growth in that area was kind of, I had a responsibility, for a long time to do that. And then as it kind of, continued to go on, it did, that the pressure is very real, that the time demand is very real. Probably the biggest thing with me, I I'm very proud of the fact that I don't think we were wrong. We were pretty accurate. I would like to think I stayed very professional through the whole thing. I know early on there was a lot of learning, there was a lot of growing and figuring out what I was learning on the fly just as much as everybody else. But I'm very proud of that aspect of it. And I think the thing that I would say I am most proud of, my relationships are everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say I never went against any of those relationships. If anything I put out there, it was trying to do it in a way where everybody was okay. Everybody was on the same page. It didn't burn a bridge. It didn't hurt somebody. It didn't impact somebody. Now there might be an argument, I might rub some feathers wrong or made some people mad or made people in the league mad or, it definitely was, we could debate that all day, but I personally wanted with my relationships to continue to cultivate those and not go against anyone just for my own personal gain. So there was a lot that I could have done and I didn't. There's a lot of ways I could have worded things and I didn't. So I personally am very, 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 very proud of that. And I want people to know that. But with that, it was a lot of chaos. It's a lot. WNBA Twitter and just Twitter in general. And, there's a lot of emotion that I'm personally dealing with right now with it. I'm happy. I'm excited. I'm mad. I'm angry. I think I'm trying to figure out in my own mind how I want to kind of express those things and what needs to come out, what doesn't. I don't know what the future holds. I have no idea. I just know it got to a point where I was stepping back and realizing like what is my why, and I can't do it all. Our male counterparts get to make millions doing these types of things, and I just got married this past summer. My business is growing. If I'm completely MIA for an entire, 6 to 8 weeks this time of year, there's kids over in Europe who are suffering. There's my clients who are suffering. My broadcast ability, my sharpness is suffering because I am having to give so much time and energy to, the grind of WNBA breaking news. And so I had to really come up with I had to have some tough conversations with myself with that. And it's hard. I wish I could do it all. I really, really do. But I'm not the type of person that half-asses anything. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to go all out. The thing I think I'm struggling with the most is you do feel like a little bit of, are you letting people down? I think that's the hardest thing that I'm kind of personally battling right now. But, I hope people realize where I'm coming from. And if I could do it, if I could support myself doing this, if I could have had a future in this, if I felt like doors would have opened in this, maybe I would be in it still. But I just don't see those things happening personally at this point. At the start of 2024, I don't see those things happening. And maybe at one point I did. I wasn't sure. That wasn't always my why. My why was I could, and I had the ability and the time to do it. But now I'm just at a point with everything else growing, I've got to feed the areas that, are providing for myself and I can take care of my family with. And it's just prioritization. That's kind of where I'm at with it. So yeah, like I said, I could go on. I could write a book about this entire experience, but just right now in this exact moment, I'm just, kind of weathering a lot of the emotions with it because I put everything I had into it. I can confidently say that. And I think when you do that within, you love anything and you put your heart and soul and passion into anything, and it has to end, there's always a lot of emotions. So yeah, there you go.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the honesty, appreciate the openness. And I'm for one, I'm very happy for you. I mean that's something that it takes a lot to do. Not a lot of people realize that it takes a lot to make that decision. You have to do what's best for yourself, best for like you said, your job and what requires more of your attention. And the thing on the other side of this that I don't think a lot of people realize is, like you said, the time and the commitment that it takes. It's not like, you're getting a text message, just out of the blue being like, hey, break this news, here you go, putting it on a silver platter, somebody just, telling you to break something. It's not that easy, which a lot of people I think realize it is. It takes a lot of time, takes a lot of effort, relationships, like you said. And you have to live in that space while you're trying to break the news or try and you portray whatever information you're trying to deliver at that time. And There are a lot of struggles that come with that too. As I know, you lived that. There's a lot of people that want to take the credit for your work, or they maybe, will steal some of the information that you're using and maybe try and twist it off for their own personal gain or whatever that may be. But there's a lot more to it, and it is a lifestyle, and a lot of times you aren't getting, like you said, you're not getting, properly compensated. Not that that's everything, but it would obviously it would help a lot. And that's what everybody else in every other sport is getting, and they're being provided that opportunity, and that's not the same case, unfortunately, with women's basketball in the WNBA. So it I'm not trying to get on a tangent here, but it's
We can do it if you want.
yeah. What I'm saying is there are struggles to it, and that firsthand. There are some struggles of that come with it, and you kind of have to draw a line in the sand sometimes of, okay, is it worth it? And that's something that's, you can worry about other people, what they think, but it's all, at the end of the day, it's all about you and what your best interests are. So I'm happy for you and everything that you have done, everything that you provided to the game, all the coverage that you provided. And I'm also happy that you've come, because it is a big decision to come to the realization that, hey, I got to focus on something else.
Yeah.
And that's something that's impressive in itself. So I
Well,
commend you for that.
well, thank you. I don't know if it's the right thing. I don't know. My why in it, because I obviously wasn't making a living on it, was truly, just to help my relationships and help, this game and these women get the attention they deserve. At the end of the day,
Hmm.
that's why I did it. I went as hard as I possibly could for 5 years, and it's hard to not feel like I can give that anymore, And so that's kind of the moral conflict right now, outside of all the the anger or feelings I might have towards others or outlets. And I know the truth. I know how I did it. I feel like I did it morally correct. I feel like I did it alongside people who know that I did it the right way, and never vindictively tried to go against anybody. And I could call anybody that I've worked with in the last 5 years, and I think our relationship, would be the same, if not better than what it was even
Hmm.
before. So to me, that is the thing I'm most proud of. I didn't have to burn bridges just for personal gain, and I was not going to do that. My relationships are everything. My love for this game is everything. My passion for the growth of the WNBA and women's basketball is everything. And that's why I will always remain in it in some capacity. And I don't want people to think I'm dying, guys. Like some of the reactions have been really interesting to me. I very much plan on, being involved on the podcast and doing the playbacks and,
Hmm.
giving the commentary. Many of you know I'm no longer writing with Just Women's Sports. I didn't feel that it was necessary to put that out there. But my commitment to Winsider, and everything that we've been able to build there is just as strong as it's always been. I don't know if there's an opportunity, there could be some rogue news that comes out here and there. I just wanted people to know that this specific aspect of what everybody expects of me at this point is not going to be what it was. So
Hmm.
I'm still here. My entire life will be dedicated to this game in one way, shape, or form. It's just, just pivoting a little bit.
Hmm. And that's why we all get involved in this space, and all got involved, at the beginning, is that we're all trying to grow the game. We all love the game. We all love covering the game. And that's why we got involved in what we do. And that's part of reporting too. You're doing it because you're trying to grow the game. You're trying to grow the exposure. You're trying to make news as relevant as any other sport or any other league or whatever it may be, because it deserves that. And that's, for me personally, that's what I try and do in my content that I write on this podcast, whatever it may be. If I can teach somebody, if I can, inform somebody, that's what matters. If I can help them, increase their interest in the WNBA, women's basketball in general, any sport in general, that's what matters. And I think that's hidden behind everything. That's the reason we all do it. That's why people work for organizations in the league. That's why people, are on TV. That's why they, write. That's why they, report anything. they do it because they enjoy the game, they enjoy what they do, they want to grow the game, and that's in the end what we're all trying to accomplish. So that's the key thing I think that a lot of people don't realize. And those people are people. They have lives. They have to, that they're not just doing it because they're making a bunch of money. They're doing it because they want to do it and they're interested in doing that. And that
Well,
goes unnoticed sometimes.
and just to expand on that, I mean, I did not go to school for journalism.
Right.
I went to school for communications. And my ability to talk behind a microphone and be on, television. I mean, I went to school for PR. That was what my degree actually was. And so, I've worn so many hats through my career, from being a college player to a professional athlete to a college coach at various, schools, to a business owner, someone who runs tournaments in the summertime at the grassroots level, someone who has broadcasted the game. I mean, sometimes I joke the only thing I haven't done around the game has been a referee.
Not
you know,
yet. Not
Not
yet.
yet. I mean, I've got some people who still to this day try and convince me, to a business owner. So I feel like one of my biggest assets is the lens in which I view the game, and the way, the different perspectives I have. But what I will say is, I love the media. I would say my passion is in the broadcasting, but I never thought I would be writing about the WNBA. I never thought I'd be breaking news. And so I came into this world, the Winsider, however, 5-6 years ago, with the intent of the show. And through this period of time, I mean, I think we have seen such a massive shift in the coverage of the WNBA. And, some of the people way back when, it's been fun to watch their careers evolve. And, I have such an appreciation for the independents in this space who tirelessly work at all the different outlets, that I know are grinding and are working, and on top of their full-time jobs, making next to nothing. And so many people don't realize that. So many people, in different areas of our game don't realize the independent work that goes into this. And it's fueled by passion. It's fueled by the love of the game. And people are doing this for nothing. And I have so much respect for the media, at all levels, especially at the independent, level that, we've kind of all existed in. That's, I never saw it that way before. And my respect and my credit, I could go down the list and name so many people that, we've all become, colleagues in this space, but that has been a very, what's the right word? A powerful lens in which I now view the space, which I didn't have before. And everybody out there deserves all the credit in the world. And I hope that, the WNBA, I hope that the players, I hope that, they realize it. I hope that everybody realize how hard everyone is out here trying to work for the betterment of them, for the betterment of this game. And yeah, I just don't think that the independents out there get enough credit. The people like you and the people, over at the Next, and you can talk about, the types of growth we've seen from places like the committee. I mean, people are just so passionate, and they're working so hard to bring coverage to this game, and they don't get enough credit. And I see you all. I have a whole new respect for you all, because I've been in this world so deeply the last 5 years, as my schedule has allowed it to be, and it's just a whole new appreciation for me.
That's one thing I can echo. That one thing I've noticed too, with just being around different people who cover the league. It's, we all have full-time jobs. We all have jobs outside of what we do. I have a full-time job separate from what I do. I come home and I work on WNBA stuff. Like people don't realize that it's not, this isn't our primary job. That we do it because we love what we do. We do it because we want to do what we do. And like you said, we do it for to little to nothing, and that's not the point. But it you know what I mean. It's something that goes unnoticed a lot in this space, that not a lot of people even realize or really recognize or know. So it's I agree that there are a lot of people doing some great stuff, and they're doing it because they like what they do, they enjoy what they do, and they're not getting paid really anything to do it.
And I just don't want it to be lost that, when we talk about grow the game, it's more than just the teams. It's more than just the players. It's about us too.
Yes.
There's an ability for the independents and the people who make, pennies to write and tirelessly create content. There's places for that to grow too. And I don't think that that's acknowledged enough either.
Right.
So
Exactly.
anyway, I'll get off my soap
Yeah.
now.
Well, I appreciate you opening up about that. I could probably go on for another half hour about this topic, but I appreciate you opening up, appreciate the honesty, like I said, and everything that you just touched on. That's all important stuff. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk about it. I
Yes.
know RA&R will go on the pod and
Yep.
probably expand on it much further, but it was nice to kind of get some of this off my chest. So
Yeah,
thank you.
absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for all the coverage that you have provided. And if you do continue down the road, what you will continue to do. I said it on Twitter, not to keep going on about this, but just to kind of put a bow on it, I said on Twitter, you've helped grow the game, and that's an understatement. With your coverage, I know a lot of people. I can speak for a lot of people that said when we provide coverage, or if we are trying to break news or whatever, maybe portray news or tell news, we all try and to try and do what the even the level of work that you provided. So it's been somebody I know I personally looked up to the work that you've done, and I followed it since you really started breaking into this space. So I appreciate everything you have done, and if this can be any sort of, I don't know, if I don't know what word to use, but you did help grow the game. If that helps with anything in your decision, you helped grow the game, and you helped to make it a better space from here on out. So I appreciate everything that you've done.
I texted you at the time and I said, stop it. You're making me cry when you tweeted. And you're going to make me tear up now
I'm
again.
sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. It means so much more than
Mhm.
you or anyone would realize. And I think, again, that just the only thing I can say is it's just because I really did pour my heart and soul into it. So to hear
Absolutely.
those things means a lot. And especially to hear it from someone like you, I respect tremendously. Thank you for saying that.
Of course. Thank you. Well, let's talk a little basketball
Talk
then.
free agency.
Should we
Let's go.
talk some
Let's do
basketball?
it.
All right, so free agency obviously is well, it has been underway, but now towards the end of January here, we're in that negotiation period, February 1. The contracts can officially become official, as we'll hear news before then, leading up to that point, and then it'll obviously become official beginning February 1st. But specifically when it comes to let's start maybe with the Minnesota Lynx and some of the possibilities that they could explore this offseason. When you look at the Lynx and what they were able to accomplish in 2023, the kind of the foundation or the team that they built or the roster that they kind of built, with some of the younger players, some of the veterans that are currently on the roster or that were on the roster. What do you think is maybe the biggest need or biggest needs for Minnesota that they could address either in free agency or eventually leading up to 2024?
I mean, I think you and I talked about it a ton last year, going on and on about, their draft was tremendous. Diamond Miller, Dorka, Juhas, and I mean, I think the opportunity that those players had because of the need and because of the way their roster was comprised last year, I think was one of the biggest takeaways from 2023 for me. I think you're starting to see Nafisa Collier turn into literally, I mean, she's like right at that MVP spectrum, at least in my mind. And so, this team, I think, got a lot of experience under their belts last year. And you have to credit Cheryl Reeve. I mean, last year and even the years leading up, there's been some tough contracts that have made this really hard for them to have success in free agency. I mean, they've kind of been handcuffed a little bit with some deals that just, were either too big or didn't necessarily pan out, but this team has found a way. And last year, they were able to have success in the draft. And I think that they nailed it. We talked about that a ton. And so now, you're heading into this year and it's like, okay, like when I look at their current situation, all the different moves they have a lot of moves that they can make. They've got a lot of players they can, let walk or move away from or choose to potentially sign again. And so you're starting to see that kind of chokehold open up. And I think that's exciting. I mean, Obviously, being able to secure McBride, I think, was huge. I love the fit there. I think Nafise Collier continues down the trajectory she's on. Dorka and Diamond Miller, you know, I expect that experience from, last year just to continue to roll over into this year tremendously. But there are holes on this roster, and I'm interested, to see. I think in my mind, I think you look at it. We've talked about the need for a franchise point guard in Minnesota. I think there's a massive argument for depth in the post, shooting at the wing. And so how do you address those in this free agency, and who are you going to kind of walk away from? I think there's no question, the Aerial Powers situation. I'm guessing I would be very surprised if she remains on the team. I think Achanwa, I like the fit of Lindsay Allen. I think Reeves seems to like her. I think that's a good fit there. But what happens with players like Bridget Carlton? Did they end up re-signing her? I would, if I was a betting woman, I would say yes. Do they move away from Rachel Galligan? So there's a lot of flexibility from the cap space side of things. And, I don't know. I'll throw it back at you a little bit too. Like, do you agree those are kind of the areas that need to be addressed? And I mean, that's pretty vague, but which one can be addressed? Because right now, and I'll talk about this here in a little bit, but we have a lot of teams right now going after the same players, and there's going to be teams that are going to strike out. There's going to be at least 2 teams that strike out and really struggle this free agency. And in my opinion, it can't be Minnesota. They can't afford to. So how are you going to package something or find a way to attract some of those top free agents, and who are they? And secondly, if you can't get those, are you putting in the time and the effort to attract kind of those second tier type players who, can come in and just give you that shot in the arm and be a good fit and make your roster better? So I don't know. I mean, I personally, I love the excitement around Minnesota right now. I love the core, including some of those young players, but this is a big free agency. I mean, this is a major moment in time for Minnesota. So I'm curious, just your thoughts, because you are on the ground and you do spend so much time and do such a great job covering this team. If you feel like you agree with me, if you feel like there's an area that's different.
I think it starts obviously with that point guard position. They have to address that. Shale Reeves has talked about the lack of finding somebody for that position, not even necessarily talent wise, but just consistency at that position, really since Lindsay Whalen retired. And I think this is their chance to be able to go make a splash if they want to make a splash in free agency. I look at this might be, by the time this podcast drops or by the time people are listening to this podcast, the names are probably off the board or whatever that may be. But I look at somebody like a Natasha Cloud. I think Minnesota could have the chance to, maybe they won't overspend for her. I know Shale Reeves has talked about not wanting to do that again after the Aerial Powers, the Natalie Chan was kind of that situation. I mean, kind of being strapped down with those salaries, but they do have the room to be able to throw some money at players to try and attract them. And now whether or not they get someone like the likes of Natasha Cloud, like a lot of people are going to be going after, who knows? But I think that's something they need to address. I think that it will start at the point guard position. I think everything else will kind of follow after that. Whether if they can't get a top name in free agency at the guard position, maybe they settle for 2 middle tier or kind of second tier players. Maybe they get a guard, and then maybe they do address the depth at the post. But yeah, I mean it's like you said, as you mentioned, they do have the ability, they do have the money now that they get the Powers and the Chanwa contracts off the books. They do have that flexibility to be able to do that. I agree with you too about Lindsay Allen. I do like her here. I think that if Minnesota does strike out, if they are one of those teams that do strike out or that strikes out in free agency, Lindsay Allen comes back. Maybe she even comes back regardless and kind of plays more of a backup role or kind of owning that second unit. But yeah, I definitely agree that point guard position, whether that's even in free agency, in the draft, via trade, whatever it may be. Trades are obviously a little bit harder to come by, but that's something I think really need to address. And that's something that early on, maybe midway through the the regular season that was looking a lot better than what it is right now as far as the pool of talent at that guard position. There were the likes of, not saying that they would have gotten this player, but like Jewel Lloyd.
Right.
I think of that as a name that would have been amazing. I think Cheryl Reeve would have done absolutely anything she can to get Jewel Lloyd on this team, as anybody would do. But that kind of pool has thinned out a little bit, but there are some big names out there that they could still go try and get. But yeah,
Well,
so long story short, I think guard is the a topic of this offseason.
yeah, I mean, I think the need, the supply and demand is very much a factor here. It's going to be interesting. I mean, it's going to be interesting. A lot of these players now are starting to kind of package up and
Hmm.
make decisions on where they want to go. I think, especially at the point guard position, there's more need out there for franchise point guards than what's actually available. So you
Right.
are going to have to overpay. Are you
Hmm.
comfortable overpaying at that position? And maybe just some of the contracts of the past, does that kind of, give you a little bit, you're a little bit trigger like shy. If you're Minnesota, but then on top of that, does Minnesota have what it takes to attract those free
Yep.
agencies, those
Yep.
types of players who want to play together? And what are those kind of combinations, right? That's been a trend we've seen the last couple of years, is players wanting to go play with certain people or make moves with certain people. I mean, are we going to see Elena Deladon, Natasha Cloud go off to Phoenix and chill and run it with DT and BG? I mean, that is very possible.
Hmm.
And my sources, that is very much happening. And I don't even know like how open-minded people are necessarily being with it. So, okay, who else is there? Skylar Diggins, that's a huge one. What ends up happening there? I think you could make an argument or a scenario for a lot of different places. But what I'm basically getting at is there's going to be people who strike out and lose this free agency drastically. And that's hard, and it'll be interesting, when we're here a month from now. We always talk about the winners and the losers. It's going to be interesting to look back and analyze, the moves that were made.
Yeah, and Minnesota has to, they have to already come up with a plan B, which they have. But let's say they do strike out. Okay, now what do we do? What's going to happen? Do they try and focus on something in the draft? Do they bring back Lindsey Allen as kind of that gap guard that could, just kind of own the starting role again and try and develop somebody underneath her? Do they try and, like I said, trades are very hard to come by, and they are hard to make in especially in the WNBA, but do they try and package somebody up with that draft pick and try and go off and get somebody or get a player, maybe a sign and trade, whatever it may be? Minnesota has to think about if they don't, because there's a real possibility, like you said, that they are one of those teams that are without signing a guard. And then you're back at the exact same spot you were at the end of last year. And maybe that's something they're comfortable with. Maybe they're comfortable with Lindsey Allen taking over the starting job again this year and just kind of running it back and bringing the same crew back together, and then focusing more on the draft and developing again. Maybe that's something they are fine with, and maybe next year is another chance to find that star point guard, or that starting guard moving forward on this team. But yeah, it'll be really interesting to kind of see what they are able to do, not just what they can do, but what they are able to do and who they are able to attract. Because it's one thing to have the money and be able to, or be willing to spend it, but but it takes two to tango, so they have to find a dance partner to be able to make that work. But
I
um,
also think they could maybe make a play for someone like a Kalani Brown.
mhm.
You know, I think that's a player that in my mind fills something that this roster currently doesn't have and could really be a big asset for them if, say, they've got to kind of jerry rig the guard position. Are you able to add in the depth in the post? I mean, again, they're going to have the money, they're going to have the flexibility to make some moves, and so I don't think it's all hyper focused on the point guard spot. But I think that Kalani Brown, if it were me, that's someone that I would want to try
Mhm.
and make a play for.
Well, to that point too, it's, a lot of people look at Minnesota. They're like, oh, you have Jess Shepard and Dorky Uhas who both could, take over that spot. Well, not take over that spot, but are currently in that spot. The only thing is, Jess Shepard has not been, as a lot of people, rip on, let's say, Lena Delle Donne for not staying healthy. Jess Shepard has not been able to stay healthy either. She's a great player when she is healthy, but that's something that Minnesota has to take into account too, is that okay, if you're without her again for, let's say, half the season, now what? You don't really have a lot behind her. I know Maya Hirsch, she might potentially be coming over, but I think it's gonna be a learning process and kind of a process for her to get her feet wet in the WNBA. So that's not maybe necessarily the answer to everything right now. So that is a real question mark for that team as well. It's not just like you said, it's not just the guard position. It's elsewhere too, and that's something that should be addressed this offseason as well if they're able to.
Yeah. And I do think, I mean, another thing people got to remember, the Olympic year, there's going to be
Yep.
10 to 12 players who we're used to seeing here, on these teams every single year that won't. And
Hmm.
that will say, that'll give some flexibility to some teams. It could be a positive in terms of the moves they make, but we got to think about the players out there like Kayla Georges, the Rebecca Allens. I mean, how that's going to the Olympic year, how that's going to impact how these rosters end up getting filled out as well. So
Hmm.
don't forget to keep that in the back of your mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of looking at, and I know free agency and the draft obviously play a big role into this, and in exactly how specifically for the Lynx, I mean, how they're going to look. If they get a top name guard, that's obviously going to change things a lot. If they don't, that they're basically going to be the same team probably as they were last year. But with all of that said, what do you think? I guess what are your expectations for the Lynx in 2024 if they are able to get let's say a Natasha Cloud, if they are able to somehow get her in free agency, that would obviously take them up a notch. That would improve them a decent amount. But if they're not, maybe both scenarios, what do you expect from the Lynx in 2024, knowing what they built in 2023, and what they were able to accomplish last season?
Well, I mean, I guess I see it. I kind of feel like it's at a fork in the road.
Right.
Bring in more veteran players, that kind of overshadow the great foundation that's been started with a player like Dorka and Diamond Miller, and maybe hinder their growth a little bit and try and just make a play, right away and see what you can do. Or do you kind of play the long game and trust the process a little bit and continue to build and continue to bring in the right types of fits and understanding, like, we're not trying to be, a immediate contender right now. We're trying to just maybe get in that top, you know, 3 or 4 conversation, and
Hmm.
so I think that's the question. Does this team, I don't, I don't, I'd be shocked if they took a step back. I think with the flexibility that they have, it was hard. I know this team has had some challenges the last couple of years, just even with some fits of some certain players. And, to Shale Reeves' credit, she's always found a way to be competitive. She's found a way to put her players in a situation where they can win. And that's why she's one of the greatest of all time. But I think, I don't see it getting worse than what it was, is what I'm trying to say, to win under some of those circumstances. And that's a credit to Nafisa Collier as well. I mean, you've got a player like her, one of the greatest players in the world on your roster, that you can
Hmm.
throw the ball to and go to work with. So I don't see it taking a step back. I think if anything, it'll be it'll worst case scenario, it stays the same. You fill out your roster with, some serviceable players. You continue to trust the process, and you're really pouring your future into young players and Nafisa Collier. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, especially with the type of drafts we have coming up, not just this year, but next year. Because then again, that's a whole other conversation I'm sure we'll get to here in a minute, but we don't know what's going to happen with the draft. That makes it very difficult for them to make these decisions right now, as to who's coming in, who's coming out. So I don't think they'll take a step back. I think, worst case scenario, you fill out your roster with, some solid pieces and you continue to build around what you currently have. And again, Cheryl Reeve has proven time and time again her ability to win games. And as long as she's got the right type of personalities on her team, I don't see why she can't continue to do that. It's just a matter of, do you go for the high profile free agents? Are you able to attract them? Are you able to package those things and make it work and really try and make that jump and be a contender right now? To me, I think that's going to be really hard to do. I think
Hmm.
that'll be really hard to do, but more kudos to them if they can get it done. I think it'll more so be closer to, you know, um, a small step forward is kind
Mm-hmm.
of what I would maybe anticipate. Again, I'm just guessing. I think this team's going to be competitive. Whoever's on the roster, again, this history just tells us that. Um, and I think that they're going to find a way to win games, and you've got some great pieces, but again, I see it as a fork in the road.
Yeah.
Are you investing in your young pieces and some of the, you know, in the draft and trusting the process, or are you trying to bring in people to kind of overshadow them and try and win right away?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know the
Mm-hmm.
answer to
Yeah. But kind of looking at on that same note, looking at the draft, Minnesota obviously has pick 7 in the open or first round. There's like you said, there's a lot of question marks still with the draft as far as who's going to be coming out.
Gosh,
That will weigh heavily on what the draft looks like. Um,
it's
when
so
it comes,
hard to even like do a mock draft.
I
Like
know.
it's like I don't even know where to start with it, you know. But I do know is whether it's this year or next year, the talent that's out there right now and
Yeah.
however it ends up shaking out this season, Minnesota can find a great piece and they've drafted very, very well the last year especially. So I have a lot of confidence in their drafting ability.
Mm-hmm. When it comes to maybe like I said, it's really hard to even predict, what the draft will look like this year. Some of those middle of the ground or kind of middle of the pack prospects. Do you think that, you know, if you were Minnesota, would you maybe target more of a guard? Would you look for some post depth with that position or with that 7 spot in the draft? Or I guess how would you kind of attack that if you were Minnesota?
I mean, I'm just looking at some of the mocks that have gone out, and one of the ones I like the most is Alyssa Pilley, from
Hmm.
Utah. I mean, I think she has size. She's very, very untraditional in the type of player that she is, and I
Hmm.
think she brings a lot of versatility to the game. And I think she would fill, she would give this roster a lot of flexibility in terms of your ability to kind of shift some people around, but also fills holes, at the wing from their ability to have somebody other than McBride who can stretch the floor. And Banham, I mean, who knows what's going to happen with Banham, but I think that she would be someone I would like for this fit. Again, we're talking versatility, talking, I think she has all the tools to be a successful pro. And I think she's someone that is going to be really highly sought after. So if she were to fall to 7 in a spot like that, I mean, I would have to take a solid look at her. I mean, some of the other names, you know, Rakia Jackson, of course, Camila Cardoso. There's a lot of debate as to, where could she fall at 6'7"? I mean, how do
Hmm.
you can't ignore that. Does she end up going earlier in the draft as lottery, or does she drop down a little bit more? And that's a whole other conversation about, kind of her fit in the WNBA and where she would fit in terms of style. But I mean, that's a little bit of a example, maybe like a post player that I'm sure that they are taking a really, really strong look at. And of course, also Angel Reese,
Hmm.
can't ignore that. And just, her dominance, especially on the glass and what she's able to do, around 15 feet, I think has been really, impressive. I don't know. Personally, I'm a huge Georgia Amore fan.
I am too.
Absolutely love her. I don't know if she's coming out, if she's going to decide to stay at Virginia Tech, but I'm taking a look at her if I'm any team in the league. I mean, I've
Mhm.
just seen enough. I'm convinced and maybe it's a personal bias because of the international thing and, my college ties, but I am a massive Georgia Amore fan. And like, I would be shocked if Cheryl Reeve isn't either, or,
Mhm.
isn't, that could be someone that, could be available at that position as well.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Kind of I know we're what, I don't even know, a couple months, well, 2, 3, 4 months away from the WNBA season, but it's never too early to talk about the upcoming season. When you have or if you have any predictions for the upcoming year, maybe it's one or two. What do you have any I guess bold predictions or any predictions on what might take place?
Um,
That's very
I
open-ended.
I think Phoenix is going to just completely, I mean, it's already been blown up. in a good way. And I think it's going to continue to, it's just everything's different. Now you still have Taurasi, you still have BG. But I think Phoenix is going to be a completely different animal now. I think they have the potential to be one of the winners of free agency, in terms of some of the things I'm hearing. And if they're able to bring in, a Deladon and someone like Natasha Cloud along, I'm excited about that. So from a free agency standpoint, I'm excited about Phoenix to see kind of what this franchise can, I don't know. It's like a breath of fresh air in it to some degree. You can make an argument that they're still handcuffed in some ways, but I think it's needed, and it's been hard. It's been really difficult to even watch them the last couple of years. And I don't mean that in a negative way. It's just it's been challenging. It's just hard. It's been a lot of drama, a lot of unfortunate circumstances, and I'm excited to, just for something new. So I think Phoenix has a lot of newness, a lot of potential to have a great free agency. I have a lot of questions, with what happens in Seattle. They can't mess this up. Last year was, not a great free agency for them. I mean, this year, like, okay, you've secured Jewel Lloyd. She's your foundation. She's your rock. Now, are you going to be able to, put those other solid pieces around her, or is it going to be a bust? Like, this could be, a new era in Seattle around Jewel Lloyd, or this could be similar to last year. And that's terrifying to think about. I think LA is another one, a lot from the experience of Kurt Miller. And I know Reagan Peebly being hired there. I think they're going to find ways to continue to improve that roster off of last year. But I mean, I think I'm very excited about New York. We saw the consistency of Vegas, and we saw that team and their core stick together and trust the process of, playing back to back years and growing every year, and then getting to that point where they finally got over the hump. And then they did it again because of just, they have that experience as a collective whole. That's what New York didn't have. So I fully expect them to run it back. I think they should. I think that's smart. I think that there were a lot of growing experiences from last year. And so you get that core and those players back after, losing it in the finals the way they did. That gives you a chip on your shoulder that you only get better when you maintain that high level of consistency. And so I'm excited to, hopefully, fingers crossed, Jonathan Kolb doesn't, blow it up or something crazy happens, but I fully anticipate them running it back. And I'm excited to see what New York can do when, they just have been together. They've been together. They've been through the highs. They've been through the lows. And I think those two are the top dogs. I mean, there's, I guess Connecticut, I think they'll be solid, but it comes down to Vegas, and it comes down to New York. Biggest question I also have, Candace Parker with Vegas. Who do they go after in free agency? Is she playing again? The way she's rehabbing, and I can't imagine, she'd want to go out the way she did last year on an injury. So I would think, she'd want to come back and run it back again, but who knows? Anything's possible at this point. So I see it as those two. I'm excited to continue to watch the Indiana Fever. They've made the decision to grow and to trust the process with their core and with their talented core. And I think that's the right decision in my mind. The question I have, they need to add a piece that's a veteran locker room type of player. That's not a lot of money. And who is that person? I don't know who that is. I was racking my brain earlier today when I was on the treadmill thinking about who could that person be. But they could add something like that. I think that helps them continuing to take those steps. Yeah, those are just some thoughts as I'm kind of going through this. I think the top two remain the top two. And does Vegas have what it takes to three-peat? That would be something unbelievable. And I anticipate New York will be better than they were last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll be here before we know it. I know I kind of joked that the season's months away, but it always comes up very fast, and we're already at free agency. We're almost to March Madness, as you know very well, and you'll be, I'm sure, involved in that space leading up to and during. But it always seems to creep up as as long as or as much as we look ahead to the next year and anticipate the next year, it always seems to come up real
It
fast. So
goes so
it'll be here
fast.
before we know it. So, well,
Well, we'll
cool.
have to get back on here and we'll have to talk about at the end of free agency how things went. And
Yeah, we'll see
yeah,
how right we were and how wrong we were, right?
I like doing it before and right at the start, and then like looking back and seeing how completely awful and inaccurate I was. So
Hey, I've been there plenty of times. Don't feel bad. That's kind of the downfall of having this podcast sometimes, is I can tell how wrong I was. But well, Rich, I really appreciate you joining for talking everything WNBA and everything else that we touched on earlier. It's an important conversation to have, and it's always a blast to have you on here. So I appreciate you joining. Thank you for all you do, all you continue to do, and all that you will do in the future. And I appreciate everything that you do for this podcast, for me, and for the WNBA space and women's basketball in general. So I appreciate you.
well, thank you so much. The feeling's mutual. Just let me know when you want me back. Let's do it again.
We'll chat soon. I appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Thank you once again to Rachel Galligan for joining the podcast this week. As I said at the beginning, it's always great, really great talking to Rachel about anything basketball related, but it was also really insightful and great to hear her kind of take us behind the curtain and kind of peel back of maybe some of the struggles that come with covering this league and the time-consuming nature of everything and everything that goes into not only covering the WNBA, but covering women's basketball in general. And like I said during the podcast, it's something we all love. It's something I love, but it is time consuming, and sometimes it is, well, not sometimes, most of the time, if not all the time, it is on top of other duties and other jobs that we all have. And I appreciate Rachel for everything that she provided in opening up about everything here on the podcast with me, as well as talking about the WNBA and talking about the Lynx and what we could expect this season. So thank you once again to Rachel. Always appreciate her joining this podcast, and I always enjoy chatting with her in general, but also talking about basketball. So I'll definitely have her on the podcast here soon, and we'll catch up with her and how things are going here at some point as the season approaches or during the WNBA season. I also want to give a shout out to Jeremy Rushing for producing this podcast every week, as I do. He does a great job on the back end of producing this podcast, making sure I don't sound crazier than what I actually am and do. So I appreciate Jeremy for everything that he does in helping Hitting the Hardwood podcast. I also want to give a shout out to a couple of our sponsors here at Hitting the Hardwood. First one's Homage, and second one is Better Edge. Homage is a vintage clothing store. You can check out a lot of their great gear by checking out Homage, HOMAGE.com. Go check out a lot of their WNBA gear, their Lynx t-shirt and hoodie, WNBA t-shirt. I have all three of those. I love all three of them. They have a lot of cool vintage stuff, throwback stuff. So you should really go check them out and help support them because they do a lot of great work. Second one is Better Edge, BETTOR Edge.com. Better Edge is one of my favorite betting platforms, one of my favorite betting apps. Greg and the rest of the crew at Better Edge, they're great to deal with. Minneapolis-based company. What more could you ask for if you're somebody who's listening from Minnesota or outside of Minnesota? It doesn't matter. They're a great company, a great platform, like I said, to be able to bet on sports, bet on the WNBA, any other sport you want to bet on. And they're just a great group, and any support that you can show them is much appreciated from me. And I try and do it as much as I can because not only do I appreciate their platform and being able to use it, but I appreciate everything that they stand for and everything that they do to help grow the women's game and grow the sports landscape in general. So please go check out betteredge.com, BETTOR If you're a first-time user, visit betteredge.com/links. Use the promo code LYNX, LYNX, and you get a free $20 in free play to start off with if you're a first-time user. So what better, what more could you ask for? And then some free money to play with and to check out their app. So go check out Better Edge and our friends over there at betteredge.com. With that said, I appreciate you all listening and joining once again on this edition of the Hitting the Hardwood podcast. It's been a little bit of a different off season than what we had during the regular season as far as podcasts and the timing of them. We've shifted things a little bit with the off season underway and kind of the news at a lull. But I appreciate you all loyally listening, tuning in every week, and supporting Hitting the Hardwood. One other way you can support Hitting the Hardwood is checking out our Patreon page, patreon.com/Hitting the Hardwood. That's where we get a lot of exclusive news, notes, information, coverage that I don't provide anywhere else except for on our Patreon page. Our Patreon page. So please go check out patreon.com/Hitting the Hardwood. Try a free trial, see if you like it, test it out. If you like it, please consider signing up for one of the membership tiers. I promise I will do as much as I can to make that worth it. Not only will you get the newsletter, you'll get it actually 3 times a week during the regular season, but you receive a newsletter, you get discounts at the Hitting the Hardwood store. Like I said, you get exclusive news, notes, and information that no one else gets. I only share it on our Patreon page. And you also get early access to podcasts and much more. So please go check out patreon.com/Hitting the Hardwood and get more information there. Once again, thank you all for tuning into the Hitting the Hardwood podcast. As I say every week, I really appreciate you guys tuning in. I appreciate your support. Appreciate you giving a lot of positive feedback on social media, email, anything in between. I do this all because I really, really do enjoy, the coverage or covering women's basketball, covering the WNBA. As Rachel and I talked in this week's podcast, I do it because I love it. We all do it because we love it, and sometimes it is difficult to be able to do that outside of a full-time job. But I'm still here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to continue to do it, continue to grind away, and I'm going to continue to provide this coverage because I think you all deserve it. And I think that it's an important thing to have to help grow the game, grow our fan base, grow the WNBA fan base, and grow the women's basketball landscape in general. So we're going to continue doing this. We're going to continue. We're going to ramp things up as the regular season starts here in 2024. We're about to get right into the thick of things. It's a fun time of the year, and things are only going to get better from here on out. So thank you for tuning in. We will catch up with you again soon, and I hope you all have a great week. Talk to you soon.